Well, welcome everyone to Gladney University, presented by the Gladney Center for Adoption. We are so excited to have you here with us today. We have a great group with you all, and thank you just so much for tuning in. My name is Ashley Ellington, and I'm the Education and Outreach Specialist here at Gladney. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. You will receive a survey after this training when it concludes that you will need to fill out if you're needing CEUs or a certificate of completion. If you miss a link, don't worry, you will get one in your email tomorrow at some point where you can fill out the same information. CEUs and certificates of completion will take about 5 to 7 business days to get to you. And as always, if you have any questions at all, please put them in the chat and I will make sure to have Jennifer and the rest of our team answer them for you. So with that being said, we are thrilled to have the wonderful Jennifer Lanter here facilitating this training, along with some other amazing team members here at Gladney. If you've ever been in a training with Jennifer, you know she's going to keep your attention. She's going to keep you engaged. So we are so excited for her to have this training. And we know you're going to learn so much about the services that Gladney has to offer. So without further ado, Jennifer, I'm going to let you take it over from here.
Thank you, Ashley. I appreciate that amazing introduction. Welcome, everyone. We're so excited to have you at Gladney University today, and we're so excited to tell you about our programs and services at Gladney. If you have any questions at all, like Ashley said, just put them in the chat. I want to introduce myself and tell you a little bit about myself before we get started and introduce the rest of the gang. I've been with Gladney for 22 years, which makes me seem old, but it was my first job out of college. I absolutely love working at Gladney. And when I started working at Gladney, I had no idea that someday I would be a client. My husband and I experienced secondary infertility. So after several years of not being able to have a baby and not understanding why, we started the adoption journey through Gladney, and it was a game changer. We wouldn't change any part of our story. And being a Gladney parent is one of the best things in our lives. Our son, Ben, is now 16, and he is the light of our life. And I'm very grateful for Gladney not only on a professional level, but also a very personal level. I'm absolutely in love with our mission and what we do. And as we get started, I'm going to tell you a little bit about Gladney. Hang on just a second. I'm trying to advance my screen and it's not letting me. Can you guys see my screen, Ashley?
Yes, I can see it. I can see your mouse moving.
Oh, there it goes.
There.
So Gladney is one of the oldest and largest adoption agencies in the country. This year, we will start our 135th year of serving families and children. We started out as the Children's Home and Aid Society, which we're still a charter member of, and they are all over the country. I'm really excited about Gladney because we're always evolving and meeting the services that our communities need. So far, we have placed over 32,000 children, and we have lots of different programs at Gladney that you'll be learning about. I'm excited about our audience today because I know we have a mixture of professionals and hopeful adoptive parents. So like I said, just feel free to ask us anything. We're happy to answer your questions about our programs and services. Part of what makes Gladney so special is that we have an amazing team, and you'll get to hear from some of these very special professionals in just a bit. But I wanted to tell you about our belief. Gladney believes that every child deserves a loving and caring family, and that's how we build our programs at Gladney. So today you'll be learning about our Gladney Home, which is probably our newest program at Gladney, and I can't wait to introduce you to that program. Our foster care adoption, special needs adoption, our Asia programs, which are China and Taiwan, domestic infant, and our expectant mother program, and a little bit more about Gladney University for those of you who may not know that much about Gladney. I'd like to introduce Heather Rogers at this time, and she's going to tell you all the amazing things about the Gladney Home and a little bit about herself. Welcome, Heather.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Heather Rogers, and I supervise our Gladney Home program. I have been at Gladney for 15 years and also started straight out of college. So just have really loved the journey that I've been on here at Gladney. A little bit about our Gladney Home program. So Gladney has always had a maternity home for pregnant women. And over the past 10 to 15 years, Gladney noticed that that program was utilized less and less by women who were facing an unplanned pregnancy. They were choosing to stay living in their community. And you're going to learn more about how we meet those women's needs in a little while. But we had this facility, this home, that was being underutilized. And so we reached out to the community and said, what is the need? We have space. And they said, we have a need for teenage girls in foster care, a place for them to live and be safe so that we can meet their needs. And Gladney really thought about that and said, you know what, we think we can make that work. We have worked with women before who are needing a place to live. And also we're an adoption agency. So let's take it one step further and let's work with these girls who are in foster care and let's find them forever families. And so our Gladney Home program really took off about 3 years ago. We are a group home for girls that are currently in the foster care system. We're licensed for ages 11 to 17 and for girls that in the CPS system are considered basic and moderate level of care. All of the girls that come to us are legally available for adoption, and our goal is to find an adoptive home for them and give them permanency. We have 15 rooms and each girl gets her own room and bathroom. So we have capacity for 15. Like I said, we just started this program about 3 years ago. So we currently have 5 girls living in our Gladney home. We've gotten up to 7 before, and our goal is to keep growing, but we want to really do that intentionally and to ensure that we are meeting the needs of all of our girls while they're living with us. So we work really closely and intentionally about the girls that we're bringing in and making sure that it's the right fit and that we have the appropriate staff and things like that. Our contract is with DFPS, and we also work very closely with OCOK, which is Tarrant County's region for kids in foster care, and other regions in the state of Texas. And Jennifer, if you don't mind going to the next slide. Thank you. So the purpose and goal of our Gladney Home, our purpose and goal is to provide an environment of safety, nurture, structure, and normalcy for the girls. So when these girls come to us, they have experienced so much trauma. They've experienced abuse, neglect. They've had trauma likely in their biological families, but also sometimes since they've been in foster care, and we want them to feel safe and know that they are loved. And so we work really closely with them and their team to make sure that they are feeling safe and giving them that felt safety. And sometimes that takes some time once they get to us. We strive to provide a place where they can heal from their past trauma. Our team is trained in TBRI, and we use TBRI when we're working with them. That's trust-based relational intervention. We work really closely on building relationships with our girls and to help them to know that they can build healthy relationships with adults. Many times, every adult in our girls' lives have failed them or hurt them in some way, and we want to give them examples of healthy appropriate relationships with the adults in their life. Oops, Jennifer, there you go. We advocate and recruit to find an adoptive family for each girl. So as I mentioned, the girls that come to us are legally available for adoption. And so we are working with them. We'll take photos of them to make sure that when we are recruiting for families, they have a photo that they like and they feel proud of and they want that to go out. We try to get to know the girls really well so that it's not just a file that families are looking at, but that they have someone that knows this kiddo on a personal level. And our hope is that we are a last stop before finding their forever home. So we don't want them to keep bouncing around in foster care. We want to be there for them until they are ready to go to a permanent family. We walk alongside each family after placement. So once a girl is placed with an adoptive family, we continue to work closely with that family in that girl so that they know that we're here for them and to make sure that they are having a successful placement, because we know it can be challenging. We know there are lots of ups and downs, and we want them to feel supported through their journey. And then Gladney Family for Life. We believe that every person that works with Gladney becomes family for life, and we want to ensure that they know that just because they leave our home doesn't mean that we don't care about them. We have had some girls that have turned 18. One of our girls is now in college. She wasn't placed for family, but we stay closely connected with her. We meet up for lunch. We just sent gifts for one of our girls that also wasn't adopted, but just turned 18 over the weekend. And we are really still walking alongside some of our girls, maybe that adoption didn't happen for them, to ensure that they are supported and loved, along with walking alongside the families that adopt girls from our program. So really just giving a holistic, all-encompassing service for our girls and for their families. So that is just a quick overview of the Gladney Home. I think that Ashley put a video for the home in the chat. And if there were any questions, Jennifer, I'm happy to answer.
Let me check really fast. I don't see any questions. So thank you so much for that. And like you just mentioned, there is NBC5 just did a great story on the Gladney Home. So we encourage you to grab that link and watch it at your leisure, and you can learn even more about the home. We're very grateful for people like Heather who are passionate about their jobs. And Heather, this is much more than just a job for you. I know you're very personally invested in each and every client that you serve, and she does a great job. If anyone's interested, after this presentation, we'll be sending out an email, and you can come take a tour of the Gladney Center and learn more about Gladney in person if you would like. Thank you so much, Heather, for that information.
Thanks, everyone.
Now we're going to go to a little bit of information about the foster care system. So I'm happy to introduce Judy Hayes. Judy's actually worked at Gladney longer than me, which also means that she's a little bit older than me, and that makes me happy. Welcome, Judy.
Thanks, Jennifer. I started working at Gladney when I was 5. Just kidding. I have been at Gladney for about 30 years. I am the adoption advisor for the New Beginnings program, which is working with the state of Texas to place children who are legally available for adoption in the Texas state foster care system. I know we have some families on the call today or in the meeting today who are from other states besides Texas. With this program, Gladney is only accepting Texas families to adopt the children from Texas state foster care. For those families who don't live in Texas who want to adopt a child from Texas, there's still an opportunity for you, and the DFPS website can give you information about doing that. So what we're doing is called a matched or straight adoption. And I prefer to call it a straight adoption, because you're going to skip foster care and go straight to adoption. What this means is the child that you're getting matched to is legally available for adoption. The parents' rights have already been terminated. The appeal process has come and gone, and the child is in foster care, and the foster family is not adopting them. They're just waiting for their forever family. A lot of times these children have been in foster care maybe a little bit longer. It could be because of their age. It could have been because that they were in foster care for 2 or 3 years before they actually became legally available for adoption. And so the average age is 8 years and older. Gladney does ask families to be open to a child within a 5-year age range. So the youngest would be 7 to 12, or a sibling group of 5 to 10 or older. So if you're open to siblings, sometimes we do see children who are a little bit younger than that. So that also gives you an opportunity to tell us, yes, we would be open to 3 children under the age of 5 as well. To kind of give you an idea about the number of children in Texas foster care, and these numbers vary greatly on a monthly basis, but this kind of gives you an idea that there's almost 30,000 children in foster care just in the state of Texas. Those children that are legally available for adoption, there's almost 7,000 of those children. And in Region 3, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth area, there's a little over 6,000 children in foster care, and about 1,100 of those who are legally available for adoption. What this means to you, Gladney can place any child, any one of those 6,800 children who are in foster care in the state of Texas. As long as that child is legally available for adoption, Gladney can place that child. They don't have to be in your region. They don't have to be in your county. That applies more to foster care. So why are the children in foster care? We want families to make sure that they understand that the children just like Heather was saying about the girls who are in our home and the trauma that they have experienced. These children have been abandoned. They've experienced abuse mentally, physically. When a family gets to read a child's file, they will read about the trauma that the child has faced. The one thing that may not be in that child's file is sexual abuse. If that's not been witnessed or the child was afraid to tell anyone, we don't know if they were sexually abused, but you have to assume that they were. So we want families to be aware of this and expect these issues, which they've also seen domestic violence in their home. Their family could have been in crises. They could have seen their parents incarcerated, taken in the middle of the night off to jail. A lot of times the birth parents have medical problems or mental health issues that prevents them from parenting the children the way they should be. And they've witnessed substance abuse. A lot of times they may see people, the adults in their home, who are abusing drugs and alcohol, and not necessarily the children abuse the drugs and alcohol, but they see others in the home doing this. So we want families to be aware of these issues and understand that these types of trauma do cause behaviors, but we will try to prepare you for that just as much as possible. So the next slide, which talks a little bit about that. We just want families to be aware and willing to accept a child who experienced any and all of the previously mentioned situations. Just because you say yes, you'll accept a child who has experienced trauma, which causes developmental delays, or they've witnessed alcohol and drug abuse, does not mean that we're going to match you to a child who has the most severe traumas. Gladney is placing children who are considered a basic and moderate level of care. We do place a few children who are specialized level of care, and we don't usually place any children who are intense level of care. That takes a very special family. And the basic is the least amount. Moderate, of course, the child has experienced maybe more trauma, and specialized, and then of course intense. So those are the different levels of care with these children coming out of foster care. So another aspect to the New Beginnings program is special needs adoption of infants. And so you'll hear a little bit more about our domestic infant program. And the difference is basically, if we are aware that a birth mother is going to have a child that has Down syndrome or some other type of birth defect that when she gives birth, we have families who are interested in adopting those babies. We don't openly recruit families for this program. What we do is when we learn about a child who is born or is going to be born that will have a special need, then we begin recruiting families. For this program, families can live anywhere. You don't have to be in the state of Texas. So if you're in Ohio or California or Florida, we can still work with you for this type of adoption. We want to make sure families are aware of the special needs. You'll get some support on how to care for that child. We had a family recently that came from, can't remember which state, came to Houston, Texas, and stayed in the hospital with the baby for a week to learn from the nurses in the hospital about how to care for that special need that that baby was going to have. So this is also an opportunity through our New Beginnings program. I didn't mention fees, but with adopting a child from foster care through New Beginnings, there aren't any fees involved with that type of adoption, but there will be some fees involved with an infant special needs adoption. Any questions about either one of those programs?
Thank you, Judy. We appreciate that. I'm not seeing
Absolutely.
any questions so far, but if something pops up, we'll be sure to address it. These are very special programs, and I love to hear Judy talk about them because you can tell that she's very passionate about all the programs that we're working in with related to foster care and special needs placements. I'm excited now to introduce you to Mary. Mary is coming at you all the way from the East Coast. Welcome, Mary, and we can't wait to learn about China and Taiwan adoptions.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Welcome and good morning, everybody. My name is Mary Chapman, and I am the lead Asia program caseworker at Gladney. I've been at Gladney now for almost 14 years, and I've worked in our Asia programs that whole time. And as Jennifer mentioned, for our
Sure.
Asia programs, we do have, yeah, there you go. We do have 2 different countries that we work with, China and Taiwan. We've had our China program at Gladney for close to 25 years, I believe at this point, and our Taiwan program for a little over 13 years. So we've got a lot of experience working with both countries. I will say both countries, their programs and process are very different. So I'm going to just kind of do a broad highlight today for each country and share just a little bit about the process for each with you. You'll see on this slide, we have kind of the general requirements for adoptive parents for each program. Those requirements are set by the country, not by Gladney. So you'll see those there. And I will also say with the pandemic over the last year and a half, we have seen some changes for both the China and Taiwan program. Right now, China is kind of on a little bit of a pause. They are not allowing adoptive parents to travel to China to complete the adoption, take placement of their child and bring them home. That also is affecting the matching process for China. But families can still start the process and get paperwork ready to be in a position when China does open back up for travel that you can move forward with matching to your child and complete the process at that point. So we're still going to talk about China, but just know it's a little bit on hold right now. Taiwan, however, is still fully functioning. You can still travel to Taiwan. We actually have 2 families there right now who are preparing to take placement of their children at the end of this month. There are some pretty strict travel requirements in place for Taiwan, including quarantining. So what used to be a 1-week trip at the end of the process is currently a 4-week-long trip with all of those requirements for quarantining. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that currently neither program or neither country has a vaccination requirement. So you're not required to be vaccinated in order to travel to Taiwan currently. That could change in the future, but I know that's something families always ask about. So I wanted to make sure to mention that. You do have to get tested before you travel to Taiwan and then before you enter the US on your way home. But right now there is no vaccination requirement for adoptive parents. So Jennifer, if you can go to the next slide, we will talk about a little bit about the characteristics of the children who are eligible for international adoption from China and Taiwan. There are some differences, again, between the 2 programs, but generally we do see children of both genders. It's a common misconception that there are more girls available for adoption from China and Taiwan. It's actually the opposite. We see more boys. Back, 20 years ago, the China program really used to be a program for healthy infant girls, and that's really changed in the last 15 or so years. So we tend to see more boys. We see children of all ages, but generally the children are going to be toddler, preschool age, and older. There's different reasons for that, but I would say any child under toddler age, if they are eligible for international adoption, they're going to have some pretty significant medical needs. So that's just something to keep in mind. Neither program is an infant program. It's really going to be toddler age and older. And then in China, all of the children have medical needs. So China really is a program for children with special needs, medical needs, and you'll see listed on the slide some of the more common needs that we do see in the China program. So if you are interested in adopting a child from China, you do need to be open to a variety of medical needs. For Taiwan, not all of the children have medical needs. We certainly see many children who do, but the biggest difference between Taiwan and China is that all of the children in China are abandoned. So we have no information on their birth family history. Whereas in Taiwan, we do. We know why that child is eligible for adoption. We have information on their birth family typically. And so along with that, we do see some tough stuff in a child's birth family history. It's fairly common that the child may have lived with their birth family for a period of time. They may have experienced neglect or abuse. Much like Judy was saying, they maybe witnessed substance abuse or domestic violence in their birth family home. They may have seen that their birth parents were incarcerated. So along with the Taiwan program, you do need to be open to those difficult birth family situations. Another thing we typically see often, especially for younger children who are under elementary school age, is that the birth mother may have used drugs or alcohol while she was pregnant. And we also see a history of mental illness or mental disability within the birth family. So again, when thinking about adopting children under elementary school age from Taiwan, it's very important that you are comfortable with those difficult birth family situations. The reason for that is because in Taiwan, all children have to be eligible for domestic adoption before they're eligible for international adoption. So typically the young children who are medically healthy, who don't have that tough birth family history, they're being adopted domestically in Taiwan. So we never see those children even reach the point of being eligible for international adoption. So again, that's just a quick rundown, but we definitely see a lot of variety and different medical and special needs between the two programs. And so here's just a quick look at the process of adopting from Taiwan and China. So for China, as I mentioned, families can start the process now and be paperwork ready. It can take about 6 months to get through all of the paperwork that's required to get to the point where you're eligible for matching to a child. Matching to children from China is done through Gladney. There is a central database that agencies have access to where we can view profiles of waiting children, and then we match our families through that database, and then the central authority in China approves the match, and then we move forward from there. So that point from approving a match to traveling to bring your child home, that's the part of the process that's on pause right now for China. For Taiwan, as I mentioned earlier, we can go through the whole process. One of the biggest differences with the Taiwan program from China is that, again, because we know that birth family history information, you have to go through a court process after you're matched to your child. Pre-pandemic, it was common that the courts would request the adoptive families come to Taiwan to attend a court hearing. So you would actually make 2 trips to Taiwan. But during the pandemic, with the quarantining requirements, the courts understand it's a little harder to travel. So they've been waiving that requirement. So right now it's just the 1 trip at the end of the process. So in the Taiwan program, from the point where you're matching to your child to when you're actually bringing them home, that's typically about a 10 to 12 month wait, because you've got to get through that paperwork and court process before you can finalize the adoption and bring the child home. And then I will say for both of our programs, when you do travel to China or Taiwan, we have guides in country and drivers. We help coordinate all of your travel logistics. You're not trying to figure out how to get around a foreign country on your own. You are very well taken care of while you're there. Typically for China, it's about a 2-week-long trip when you're there. And for Taiwan, again, it's typically about a week long. Right now with quarantining requirements, it's a 4-week-long trip. And then once you come home with your child, you are required to do post-placement reports for a number of years, and you will work closely with Gladney's post-adoption team. We say that you are a Gladney family for life. So our post-adoption services team, they are there to assist you with anything you need throughout your child's life as they're growing, as they're entering school, as they're entering their teenage years. Any kind of struggles that come up in your family, you can always pick up the phone and give us a call, and we will help in whatever way we can. I will say we do a monthly information session that does focus on our China and Taiwan programs, and it is virtual. We do it over Zoom just like this. So I'll put a link in the chat in a minute to our next session. It's always the first Wednesday of the month at 12 Eastern time. So I'll put a link if you want to register for the next session. And we just kind of go through all of this in much more detail and take the time to answer any questions that you have. So I'll put the link if you'd like to register for our January session.
Thank you, Mary. I love hearing about your programs, and I even learned something new. I love this chart that details the timeline. I think that's so helpful. Mary and the Asia team do lots of advocacy work. So in addition to the link that she's going to put in the chat, if you will check out our social media channels, you will see lots of advocacy happening from our Asia team with the kiddos they serve. Thank you for your work, Mary. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So now we're going to hear from Jennifer Hart. She manages our domestic infant adoption. Jennifer, welcome and take it away.
All right, thank you guys. My name is Jennifer. I've been with Gladney for 12 years now. I actually learned about adoption and learned about Gladney as a child. When I was growing up, my family would take care of little babies if there was any lag time between when they were born and when they were adopted. So I've been around Gladney, familiar with Gladney for quite a long time, and then was lucky enough to land here after college and grad school. So I supervise our domestic infant adoption program. So that is working with the couples who are interested in adopting usually babies or young toddlers from here in the US. So we are working with those families who are connecting to birth families. And you're going to hear about the services we provide to our birth families in just a little bit. But the focus, Jennifer mentioned Gladney's mission being believing that every child deserves a loving and caring family. So the function of adoption is providing families for kiddos. If you notice with Judy's graphic, there are lots of kiddos in the state of Texas's custody who are available for adoption. So that process is, if you're open to a child 8 to 18, that process is going to move relatively quickly. Here in the US, there are many more families who are willing to raise their hand and adopt an infant than there are infants available. So it is a longer process. The national average of how long it takes in the US is about 2 years right now to adopt an infant, and that's no different at Gladney. So that's about what we're seeing as well. So it is a longer process. We are connecting our families with birth families, and birth families are the ones who are choosing what family the child is going to go to. So you can expect, if you are interested in adopting domestically, you can expect to have a more open relationship. That may be different if you've known people who have adopted who are my age or older. They probably have very little information about their birth family. They probably have very little relationship. Now we've all heard stories of people who are connecting through Facebook, through other social media, through ancestry.com. People are reconnecting in adults with their birth family. But in today's world, it's just starting out more open. So birth moms are empowered, expectant families are empowered to be the ones to choose the family for their child. There is oftentimes, and most of the time, a meeting with the adopting couple or adopting parent and the birth family. There's usually, a long-standing relationship that started and developed and continues over the course of the child's life. All of the research, this has been very well researched, indicates that this is best for the kids, that when you listen to adult adoptees, we've learned that identity is such an important part of, and a person's adoption story is a very important part of their identity. And so adult adoptees now tell us that they wish growing up they would have had more access to their birth family. Sometimes that feels counterintuitive, that might be confusing for a person growing up, but it's actually not the case. When they know who mom and dad are, when mom and dad are tucking them in, mom's kissing the boo-boos, dad's picking them up from school, they're not confused about who their parent is, but it is helpful to know where they came from. So for couples who are adopting, for people who are adopting, you can assume to have an ongoing relationship. So that might look like continuing to text, continued phone calls. That might look like emails. That would probably look like, a visit at a neutral location. There's ways to do that, to do all of those things in a way that still can allow every party to feel safe and comfortable. So even if you're not exchanging full identifying information, last name, actual cell phone number, there's ways to do that through apps and whatnot and still protect that information. So that is pretty normal in today's world of adoption. Here at Gladney, we provide all-inclusive service for our couples who are adopting. So we're licensed in 7 states. If any of our families are in those states, we'll complete the home study. We can work with people from all over the US, and even if it's a state we're not licensed in, we can complete the adoption. We would just loop in a different agency to help us with the home study, depending on what state the family's in. And then our services are inclusive in that from the time someone calls and says, hey, I want to adopt, until the time the child comes home and we finalize the adoption in court, we would hold the hand of our family every step of the way. So that's everything from paperwork to home study, to the wait, to building a book for mom to choose from, to talking about online advertising, to handling those details. And then, being there and being the support when the day comes that the family is chosen by a birth family. And so that would be being involved in the first phone calls, the first meetings, and making a plan for legal rights to be taken care of, and then making a plan for the child coming home, whether that's at the hospital or some other plan. So it looks different. Our adoptions are individualized based on what's going on with the legal situation, what's going on with the family adopting the child, what's going on with the birth family. But that's kind of our role, to hold our hand every step of the way. And that, so the kids that are available for adoption, this is a different world, I think, for a lot of people. A lot of the Lifetime movies, there's kind of this notion that many of the children that are available for adoption are born to, maybe a high school student, maybe a young girl who experienced, an unplanned pregnancy early on in her life. And that's actually not the case. The average age of a woman making an adoption plan is 26. So it's a little older than a lot of people think. And if you think through it, it makes sense. If you know people in your community who've experienced an unplanned pregnancy, at age 17, 18, a lot of them have the community and the family support where they feel like they could parent that child. So all the school districts have parenting programs. A lot of times you're still living with mom and dad, have some support with family, and don't know what you don't know about, what it will take to raise a child. So the women who end up making adoption plans for their children really are in a different place oftentimes than, a first unplanned pregnancy. So we're really talking about crisis pregnancies. We're really talking about women who have found themselves in a rough spot. So it would not be uncommon to work with a young lady who this is pregnancy number 3, maybe. And maybe she's 26 and she's got 2 kids already. And so she already knows how difficult it is. And maybe those kids' father is in the picture, but this one won't be in the picture. So, it could be any kind of story that there is, but, we're often talking about women who are in a difficult position. It's not uncommon that we've got women who are coming to us with, trouble with housing that we need to help them with. Sometimes there's some substance exposure. Sometimes that there is, history of mental health or things like that, that we need to help mom with. So, our services that you'll hear about in a minute is to really wrap around mom and try to leave her in a better place, and then empower her to make a good plan for her baby. So the couples that we work with are kind of the able to, I don't want to say benefit, but they're the couples that we work with are here to provide that family for that child that is in that situation. So for our families who are successful in this program, they are going to be open to maintaining a relationship with that birth family, and then understanding that the child may have, you know, some things in their history that are a little bit more difficult. Some of the things that we talk to. We place babies of all different races, ethnicities, and we've got families who you know, are open to those things and considering those things. The other thing that I would add related to the services that we provide and what Gladney is like is just, we really do hold the hand of every family. And I've been with Gladney for 12 years now, and I will say that no adoption has looked the same. So we've got an amazing attorney on staff. We've got a lot of years of experience here on staff. And, you know, even if we're talking about the same adopting couple who's adopted more than once, even those two adoptions have looked differently. And so, you know, there's, you know, what I tell couples who are adopting is, you know, to feel confident in that, you know, when something needs to happen, we're gonna walk through it together and make sure that the couples that we're serving are very well informed.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was a great overview and great information about our domestic infant program. Jennifer is very passionate about her program, just like everyone else. And once a month we host, or once every other month, we host an orientation where couples come to learn about Gladney services and the domestic infant adoption program and what that process is like. So that's a day-long program that takes a deep dive into the process, and Jennifer leads those efforts, and she does a great job. Thank you so much.
Well, the other thing that I would add is every other week or every week we have an information session. So if you are interested in hearing more about what adoption would look like for an infant, we've got it at lunchtime. We've got an evening session every week. And so I'll put the link to sign up for those if anyone is interested in a deeper dive into what this might look like to adopt through Gladney.
Thank you. Now we are going to move on to our free services for expectant moms. So Jennifer touched on what an expectant mom may look like or be going through, and I'll just kind of recap that. Many of the women that we are working with are a little bit older than you might think. She usually is already parenting, and sometimes parenting more than one child. She has usually experienced some form of trauma in her life. Maybe she was in the foster care system, maybe she's struggling with addiction, or maybe she's just had a really difficult life. And of course, that's not every expectant mom, but that is a lot of the women that we work with come from really hard places. So Gladney's job is, our job is to really wrap around our services and help her make the best plan possible for her and her baby. We've already talked about how Gladney believes that every child deserves a loving, caring family. And we know that the expectant moms that we're working with, if she's considering adoption, that means that she wants a better life for her child than she can provide at this time. I often say that adoption can be the prevention to foster care. And so what that means is that if she's making a planned adoption herself, that means that she is putting the needs of her baby before maybe some of her own struggles and what she wants and what's happening in her life. She wants a better outcome for her baby. So we have a lot of respect for the women that we work with. We have a very caring team that works with our expectant moms, and we have lots of different programs to help serve her. I'm going to kind of go through the list of the programs and a little bit about the process for her. One of our first things that we do in working with the women that contact us is we want to make sure that she's safe and that she knows that she has options. And so the first phone call, the first text, or even the first like email or whatever way that she reaches out to us, we're just learning about her. How far along is she? When did she find out that she was pregnant? Who in her life is supporting her? What services does she need? And if she's in an emergency situation, in a domestic abuse situation or a homeless situation, we try to connect her with resources and services in our community. We do work with women from all over the country. It's not just Texas. So women are reaching out to us from lots of different states, and it's important that we're connecting her to the services that can help her immediately. Gladney's not a shelter, so we don't have an immediate place for her to live at Gladney, but we are very resourceful in finding the services that may be beneficial to her. After we find out, like, make sure she's safe and she's just maybe she just needs information about adoption, we're connecting her to the services that may be most beneficial to her. So, for example, if she is already has a place to live and she has a job and she's just wanting more information about adoption, then we direct her to one of our great admissions counselors, just talking through the process with her. She may also at this time be looking for adoptive parents already. We know from the research that we've done that most of the time may not be looking for an agency. She's looking for the parents that she wants to parent her child. And so we connect her with our own online parent profiles that Jennifer mentioned. We can also send her paper profiles, like their little book that we can send her, and she can start going through the adoptive parents that she may want to choose for her baby. Some of the ways that we can initially help her right away is a first response. So that means that she's called Gladney or reached out to Gladney and she just wants to meet with someone. We can usually get someone out to her within 24 hours, or we can connect if she's in a different state and we don't have a case manager in that area, then we would try to set up a phone call or a FaceTime call with her. And we just talk through what's happening in her life. Sometimes women reach out to us and they're already parenting a child. And so that's maybe not going well. And we try to assess, does she just need some respite care? Does she just need some rest to figure out what she needs to do? And that's where our R&R program comes into action. So in that case, if she's wanting to rest and she just needs to assess her next steps, we can connect her with one of our amazing transitional care families. And that transitional care family is a volunteer family that's licensed by the state that can take care of her baby short term while she's deciding her next steps. And that program, it can be very beneficial to preventing any kind of abuse and neglect, or stopping abuse and neglect while she's just taking a time out and figuring out next steps. We are able to provide limited financial assistance to the women that we're serving if they're considering adoption. We want to make sure that we can help her with the things that will help her have a safe and healthy pregnancy. So things like electric bill, food. Sometimes the women that we're working with don't have those basic necessities, and it's our job to help get her secure and settled in that area so she can feed her family, feed herself. We can provide medical care for her at no cost, and clinical services such as counseling, or if she needs something more intense, we can connect her with a psychologist or a doctor in her area. We also provide free legal services to the women that we're working with, and we provide lifelong post-adoption services. So what it may look like when we first start working with someone who's considering adoption is there's a little bit of paperwork to fill out, and that's just so we can get medical, psychological, and social background on her, possibly the father of the baby, and then anybody else in her life, like if she's already parenting, what that looks like for her and how many children she has in the home, things like that. And so once we get that paperwork in, then we can connect her with a case manager, and she'll be working with a social worker through her pregnancy. And that social worker just assesses her needs. What will she need in the near future, and what it looks like to plan adoption. Sometimes what I've been talking about is mostly a planned adoption. Sometimes we get a call from a hospital social worker, and that means that there's someone in the hospital that just had a baby and she doesn't have a plan for her baby, and she wants to talk to someone at Gladney about making an adoption plan. All the same services still apply to her, and all the services are free. And the services are free to even someone that may change their mind and decide to parent. Our job is just to help her make the best decision possible for her and her baby. So our job is just to connect her with services, walk with her through this journey, help her choose the adoptive family that she wants for her baby, prepare her for that first meeting, that first face-to-face meeting, and help make sure that she has the resources that she needs. This program we're very passionate about because we want to make sure that we're helping her in a way that is best for her and her baby. Gladney is really not about finding babies for families. It's more the opposite, making sure that we're providing the right family to the children that we're serving. And we take that job very seriously. Every decision that we make at Gladney is in the best interest of the child. And so that's why we care so deeply about the expectant moms and birth moms that we're serving, to make sure that we're providing them with the best care possible. This is an important program at Gladney, and it goes hand in hand with the domestic infant program. Probably the biggest need that we see in the women that we're serving is housing and medical care. And that's our job, is to get her connected with the things that's going to make sure that she has a healthy pregnancy. So we have an amazing admissions team at Gladney. So there's lots of different ways that somebody can reach out and connect with us through our website, which is gladneyadoption.com. Please check that out, and Ashley can put that in the link for you guys, and you can see the different ways and the messaging that we have with our expectant moms. We want to make sure that she's empowered to make the best choice possible. I want to make sure that I don't have any questions on this part. And if you do have any questions, now is a great time to put them in the chat. And I'm going to move on to talk about our education programs at Gladney. So Gladney is, we have a huge education branch to what we're doing right now. You're at Gladney University. We often provide, well, almost every program provides free CEUs. We want to make sure that we are connecting with not only potential adoptive families, but professionals in our communities that we serve, and we're providing child welfare education platforms so they can be better equipped to do their job. Our staff takes advantage of our amazing Gladney University opportunities as well, and so that's something I'm personally really proud of at Gladney, is we have a very educated, very professional staff. We also have lots of different programs that connect with the community in different ways. We have our Adopt Ed program. It is designed to provide adoption education for students in high school, and we can do that in person and through our virtual programs. And our virtual programs are very interactive and engaging. So far in Gladney's Adopt Ed history, we've reached over 70,000 students, and we pre and post test this program, so we know for sure that we're not only making an impact on students and teaching them about all aspects of adoption, but we're also making a lifelong difference in their learning. This is lifelong learning. It's not just a quick marketing message. And so we're able to help them understand critical decision making in regards to adoption and why someone would choose adoption if they're facing an unplanned pregnancy. We also do lots of lunch and learn programs in the community and in-service trainings for professionals. So social workers, doctors, nurses, counselors, making sure they understand Gladney services and how to refer a potential client to Gladney, and what that looks like if they do refer a client to Gladney. We want them to trust us and know that we have their client's best interest in mind. We also do lots of parent preparation, and this is important for our waiting child programs like the New Beginnings program and our international program. So we want to make sure that our families are equipped to parent children that come from hard places and experience trauma. And so that's part of our Family for Life promise. And so we do that through PAT and Pathways. It's very important that our families that we're working with can be the best parents possible for the children that we're placing in their home. So all of our Gladney University programs are free. And we encourage you to check us out on social media. On Facebook, we have a Gladney University page, and that tells you all about our upcoming programs. And you can also check us out at iamgladney.org. And there's a Gladney University tab on that website. I also want to tell you about how to contact us. We have a hotline at Gladney for all of our expectant moms that may want to contact us. That hotline is answered between 8:30 and 10, and there's also a place to leave a message. GladneyAdoption.com is our website, and you can also reach out to us at hello@gladney.org for any questions, no matter what program, and we will make sure that gets to the right place. It's been a pleasure talking to you guys. I hope that you've learned a little bit about our programs and our services. And we're excited to talk to you about our mission and who we are. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. But if not, that's the end of this presentation. And thank you so much for attending. Remember that at the end of this, a link will pop up for your CEU, and also you'll get a survey from Gladney along with a link to that email. So thank you so much for joining us today, and happy holidays.